Okay? And when you get into a situation like that, do that. Say, listen, if I'm wrong, and say this, say this, say this, say this. If I'm wrong, I'll tell you I'm wrong. I'll make you a deal. If I'm wrong, I'll tell you I'm wrong. If your parents and friends don't fall on the floor dead, it'll be great. Because there's nothing wrong with admitting I'm wrong. Nothing. The key is what you do about it. I tell people, listen, they come to me and say, you wouldn't believe what happened, and you're doing this and you're doing that. Okay, you're right, I'm wrong. Okay, what can I do? Let's move. What's the solution? Don't tell me about the problem. Tell me about the solution. I'm wrong. You think you need to ground me? You think you need to take a different grade? Okay, you do what you think is appropriate. I'm willing to accept that. But let me explain to you why I was an idiot. Let me give you some guidance as to why I overreacted. I'm not saying it's justified. I want you to hear what I have to say so you can see how moronic it really is. And they'll actually laugh at you if you say that. When you fall on your sword, as they call it, when you admit you're wrong, admit it's ridiculous, unless you don't think it's wrong. We're going to deal with that in a second. But if you do think it's wrong, admit it. You're right. You know how powerful your right is? Listen, I've talked to 1 million people. Haven't met anybody yet that says, you're right. No, I don't want to be right. Never met anybody who didn't want to be complimented. Never met anybody who didn't want to be right. Never met anybody like criticism. If you can find those people, please let me know, because you'd be 1 out of 1 million or 2 million or 3 million that I've talked to. So, if you don't like that, and other people don't like that, how do you get around that? By establishing a way of living. And this applies in your class, this applies with your friends, this applies with other things.